Welcome to Tech Careers Decoded, where we ask leading tech executives what skills today's IT pros and developers need to succeed in an AI-dominated landscape. Today's guest is Kevin Paige, Field CISO of C1. Welcome, Kevin. Thank you for joining us today. To start off, can you give a broad overview of Conductor One and its offerings?
Sure. Conductor One is an identity security company. We're really an identity security company that is kind of, that's been designed and kind of forward thinking. That's really thinking about the agentic age, right? So how does identity help enable users in a secure manner for the agentic age? So we focus on lots of different identity topics. We've helped customers with user access reviews. We helped customers with identity governance automation. We help customers with just automating access to anything they may need access to. And we do this for humans, non-humans, and agentic. And our biggest kind of newest feature that's very relevant to AI is AI access management. With an AI access management, our goal is to make the hard path the easy path, right? So when it comes to getting access to AI tools, how can we help enable that access while securing it at the same time? So that's kind of the goal.
Great. So, Kevin, tell us what soft and hard skills do you look for when hiring new talent?
If I was to, kind of tie it to like a couple of technical, a couple of soft points, I think that I would say that, number one is we are an identity company. So, having fluency and understanding identity and, some cybersecurity capabilities is super important. And not just understanding from a technical perspective, single sign-on or SAML or OAuth, but really understanding how humans, machines, and agents authenticate, get authorized, get revoked across, SaaS and cloud type applications, and really kind of, understand, from end to end, how identity works. It makes, working here much easier and makes you be able to help customers easier and provide great feedback into the product. The other kind of technical thing is, we have a culture of building, right? We have a culture of working with AI in the loop, not around it, right? So all of our engineers, not even just our engineers, our customer support people, our sales development reps, everybody is using kind of AI to draft, review, refactor things. But we also are strong on accountability. So the humans own the output, and you need to know how to use AI to help make yourself go faster from a technical perspective. The skill, from a technical perspective is having great judgment over how AI is working and refining it and constantly building scaffolding to make AI better, and not just, creating prompts for the fun of it. And I'd say from a soft skill perspective, and it kind of ties into a lot of, going fast, being a builder, focusing on productivity. You really have to be a good writer, right? So understand how to write, understand, how to provide as much detail and as many words as possible. So not traditional communication, I wouldn't say. I'd say, from a soft skill perspective, for example, like if you can't write a tight Slack message or a one-page doc, then you can't, ship at a great speed, right? So, I guess you can kind of think as, writing, is thinking made visible, right? But you have to have the context included in how you write. And I think that another soft skill is ownership. So you have to feel like you're an owner. If you're sitting around waiting for your boss to tell you something to do, then you're probably not going to be, a great fit. So, I think from a soft skill perspective, we're really thinking about, somebody telling me an interesting story about how they just went and did something that they weren't asked to do, or something that's extra. I mean, this has always been something that I've always, said that's like great for any kind of startup, or great for anybody's career. Like, don't wait to be told something, right? Go build a lab, go, figure out a problem in your workspace, and go create a solution or create multiple solutions, and have that type of mindset that you're going to go find solutions, and you're going to go figure out how to deal with them, and feel like you're an owner of the company you work in and the team you work on, and use that as a strong soft skill.
Okay, and on the flip side of this, do you think there are any skills that are overplayed or potentially obsolete?
It's a great question. um, I think I think that, for people that are new graduates, or for young and getting feedback from people that have been in the job market for a long time, probably the advice that you've got in school, or the advice that you got from, you know, your parents, probably won't work that great in today's kind of job market. A lot of times, there was an up leveling perspective where I could be a junior person, I could work with somebody for 18 months to 2 years, and 18 months to 2 years from now, then I can start doing that job. Or there was apprentice and journeyman and craftsman type kind of job leveling capabilities, or knowledge levels. And I think that a lot of that is really evolving and changing, because our ability to get knowledge, consume knowledge, bring context together, is can be done really quickly these days, right? So it's like there's no working at a job anymore, and I think thinking that in 18 months from now, then you can start being a useful member of the team. I think that, that's just gone. I think that you have to have a mindset on how can I deliver, how can I be helping, how can I be useful, kind of as quickly as possible. Um, I think that another thing that's potentially underestimated is how much of the job is unstructured. School like gives you a syllabus, like everything is very, very structured. And I think the ability to multitask becomes very important, because you're going to get slacks, and you're going to have calendar messages, and then you're going to just see problems and opportunities that you can deal with. And I think it's important to deal with them. I mean, I think sometimes, I give the advice that, a lot of people we've talked to over the years about work-life balance. And I just think that there's life balance, and you have to figure out how to manage your life. And work is one of the many, many things that's in your life. And, in the world that we live in, that's operating 24/7, with constant news feeds, constant team messages, constant Slack messages, constant emails, in a global 24/7 world, you need to, really understand how to operate in that world. The 8 to 5 jobs, I mean, they still exist, but in the large corporate world, they don't really, like, if you're going to be an 8 to 5er, probably, you can, be a bank teller, or something like that. But in the corporate world, like there is no 8 to 5. So if you come in thinking there's an 8 to 5, then it's probably going to be tough. So I think good advice is, like, um, think about when you starting a new job, or looking to start new jobs, right? You are like a startup of one, right? Like, what can I do to be the most effective, most efficient? How can I learn? How can I get the most context? Right? And how can I figure out how to deliver, and be useful as quick as possible? I think that is the mindset that's necessary these days. I think that's the mindset that's going to be necessary. So, I think that what we're seeing is kind of that bottom rung of the kind of career ladder is being eaten by AI, right? And I think that that presents an opportunity for those that are highly motivated, right? And to be able to, move quicker, deliver faster, and provide more impact faster. And if those are the things that drive you, then I think that people are going to be really, really successful with that mindset.
How much of value does certifications hold when looking to hire candidates?
So, I mean, I have a lot of certifications, so, but what I've always said about certifications is they're a signal, not proof, right? It tells me a candidate cared enough to study and finish something, right? And that's a solid data point, right? It doesn't tell me somebody can do the job, but it tells me, that they set a goal and they accomplished that particular goal of getting that certification. I think for early career opportunities, getting a cert does open a door, because there are some certs that are on job recs, and and they are required to just get the interview. So I think that becomes very important. But for a senior, like when you start to get pretty senior in your career, and your resume is mostly certifications and not impact, and not work that you've done, then, to me, it's like, why are you so worried about certification still if you've been in your role for 10 years? Why aren't you into delivery, right? All right, why aren't you into showing me the impact that you've created in the roles that you've worked on, right? So, I think certs have a place, especially when you're young in your career. I think that they're a great thing. They're great goals, right? And as you're studying, you're learning. And earlier in your career, it's all about learning. And you get a little bit later in your career, and then you start to be like, when I took this certification, I read about this. Now this is how it really works in real life, right? So, so I think certs very good early in your career. They help you learn, they help you get capabilities. But, as a person who's doing interviews and hiring people, I look at them just as that aspect, right? Similar that I would look at an associate's degree or a bachelor degree. I look at certifications as a mechanism of like, hey, this person sets goals, accomplishes those goals, and they have a base level of knowledge that they've learned. Hopefully, they still remember some of it, but at least at one time, I know they've read about this stuff for very early candidates. So that's kind of, how I think about them. Now things are evolving, I think, right? There's a kind of new dimension to the world, right? I mean, a lot of the certifications I took 20 years ago are still in existence today. They haven't evolved that much, and the world is evolving very quickly, right? So, I mean, none of the major certs have like caught up to AI and how people should think in a AI world. So I really think that, if you want to stand out today, you don't need another acronym, you don't need another certification. What you really should think about, instead of a certification or complement a certification, especially when you're more senior in your career, with a portfolio that shows you've actually deployed and governed um, tools, capabilities, AI, in production-like environments. So this thought process of, there's this amazing gift that we've been given in LLMs, in AI, and how can we use them, to show how fast we're learning, how much context we're bringing together, and how we can deliver. So I think that, that becomes the most important thing as we're, looking at the past, where certs, were a great signal, not proof, right? They opened a door. They don't get you the job. But now, none of the big certs have caught up, and a differentiator right now, I think, is going to be, as we start thinking about the future, is how we're using AI, and not just how we're using AI, but how we're using AI to enable us to get smarter, faster, and more efficient.
And to end off, this one's more personal. What is one piece of advice that you would give to your younger self?
I think one of the biggest pieces of advice I would give myself is, I always wanted everything to be perfect, and I would spend a lot of time with ideas, polishing the ideas, really, really thinking things through. And I think that I should have moved faster. As I look at today's era with AI and I take a look back, I mean, AI helps us move extra fast, but there was always an ability to lean towards execution rather than lean towards perfection, where things went slower. And as I look back, I would have said, hey, mistakes are okay. Like you learn more from mistakes than you learn from, spending a lot of time trying to get things perfect that end up not being perfect anyways. So, let's lean towards execution more than making sure everything is perfect because nothing can ever be perfect, right? And if you can, get things done, then you can, even if they're wrong, you can get feedback early, and feedback is gold, right? Feedback is gold, and the more feedback you can get, the quicker, the better, right? And the cost of waiting is irrelevance. So I think that is probably the biggest lesson that I've learned kind of just over the course of my career is don't wait for perfection because nothing's ever going to be perfect. Let's figure out how we can, move forward quickly, iterate, get feedback, go forward. Iterate, get feedback, go forward, right? I mean, I guess there's lots of metaphors over the years that talk about, as long as the ship is moving in a direction, you can always course correct. But if the ship is standing still, then you're just not you're not gaining any ground. And you're never going to be perfect, right? Like you're never going to get things to the level of perfection that you think. So, find a group of people and, get those ideas out there, get feedback on them and, do that in a continuous loop and do it quickly. So that would be my advice. Don't sit in analysis paralysis. If you have an idea, get it out there, get feedback on it, and then iterate on it and do that quickly. I wish I had done that, instead of just being worried about making sure everything was perfect and pretty and rather than leaning towards getting my ideas and getting my work content out there quickly and getting feedback on it and not being so worried about somebody might not like it, and just have a thought process of, let's get that work out there, let's get feedback on it, and let's go from there. It's very important to be a continuous learner, right? I think that being in cybersecurity for as long as I have, I've loved it so much because every new technology, I needed to fully understand it in order to secure it. And my love for learning has been really helpful, to work in cybersecurity. And I think that love for learning with AI now is amazing. So I'm talking to a lot of people that are using AI to do advanced research, to do a lot of the things that would have taken them a long, long time. I mean, I don't want to date myself, but I remember buying encyclopedias to write reports, and now the things that we can do in AI are quite amazing.
Thanks for watching Tech Careers Decoded with Kevin Paige of C1. Hopefully they've given you some practical ideas you can apply to your own career, whether you're just getting started or looking to stay ahead. Join us next time for more valuable insights from the leaders shaping the future of IT. We'll see you then.